I think we're good. All right, Eric Smothers, Brunswick City Council member and candidate for County Council District 1. Eric, what's your passion?
My passion is, I love Frederick County. Let's start there. So I've grown up here in Frederick County all my life, originally from Knoxville. That's where I grew up. That's where the majority of my family grew up at. So between Frederick County, Washington County, in that area. Migrated to Brunswick when I turned 18. Bought my first house there.
Wasn't that far?
Wasn't
of
that
a
far?
migration, but
Well, but some people think that might be a hike, but but it's all good. So, two little partner towns that in Brunswick grew up to a big city. Starting to grow. So, yeah.
It's certainly different now than. I mean, I grew up kind of Boundary Creek area. And Brunswick is certainly different now than it was even 25, 30 years ago. I can't imagine what it was 40 or 50 years ago, just how different.
A little slower. The railroad was there, and that was the big, heavy industry for Brunswick. So, and then as they started to migrate out, it had a little decline, a little downfall, and we're bouncing back from it, so that's a positive. Got a bunch of developments going on out there.
Yeah, is there as much? I mean, I know that Frederick County as a whole is commuter. I mean, just the vast majority of people are either working in Montgomery County or D.C. I assume because of the railway there, that's a good, a lot of people that work out of the county probably live in Brunswick.
They do. Actually, the MARC train service in Brunswick really still sees a lot of business. So even folks coming from Martinsburg and Harpers Ferry, the commuter line is still pretty important coming through there. So you usually have 3 trains come through there from the early morning and through the evening. I think the late train now is like 7 o'clock. Coming back from bringing people from D.C.
It is quite a tangent that we don't need to go on, but it's one of those, if you build it, they'll come. I mean, if we had more access to Baltimore and D.C. via rail, I really think people would use it a lot more. But it is, you gotta. I know a friend that actually lives down in Adamstown that when he was commuting down to D.C., he'd have to get up 4:30 to get on the train, and then so he's added 2 or 3 hours kind of to his day, because he's got to commute all the way down there, and because of the times, that there isn't a train running every hour or so.
Well, it is. You would think that, and since I've been here, lived here, that we would have done something with 270 and actually brought some bus service or some other commuter service up through that corridor, and we still struggle with that. I mean, 270 is a parking lot every morning and in the evenings, and same way with Route 15.
But if we could get a little bit more mass transit on that route, which I know that we've been talking about it forever, but I guess it's just that the state is not investing in it. I mean, is that really
Well, 270 is would be our federal partner, so we really need to have some more conversation with them. And I think with me here running for District 1, I certainly want to reach out with our delegation, our federal delegation, and even our state partners here about Route 15 and see what we can do and move the needle a little bit. I mean, the congestion in that corridor really impacts not only the commuters but also commerce, and we really need to pay attention to that. And we kind of wait till it's way too late, and then we start a little bit, then we stop. We start a little bit, then we stop.
Like decades too late.
Decades, yeah. We need to get that ball and stick with it and see it through.
All right, so you said you're born in Knoxville, you migrate over to Brunswick. So did you find a job here in the county, or are you one of those commuters?
I was one of those commuters, but I actually started here in Frederick County. So my background, when I was a young kid, 16 years old, living in Knoxville, I came through the fire service. So
okay.
I volunteered all my life with the Brunswick Volunteer Ambulance Company. I'm the assistant chief there and the current president there. But when our advanced life support service started way back in 1982, I was in that second core group that started our advanced life support services here in Frederick County, and still with that today. So I've watched that expand exponentially. I know when we had started out with just 2 medic units, I think we're um, well surpassed that now. 85% of what we do here in the fire service in Frederick County is EMS related. So that's how I initially got started, and then I got a job actually at Loudon Memorial Hospital. I used to be one of their managers for their nutritional services before they moved out of Leesburg. So I did that when I came out of school. Bill Miller was the Brunswick City Police Chief at the time, and he courted me for a job, and I went to Brunswick City, worked there as a police officer for a little over 2.5, almost 3 years.
Okay.
Left there, and when Sheriff Snyder was still alive, I actually worked for him as Frederick County Sheriff's deputy. So been with the Sheriff's Office.
So isn't there some kind of, are you allowed to do both, fire service and police? Isn't there some kind of rival there? I feel like in the movies.
There's no real rivalry there. I mean, we've all, the public service entities, I think when you do that, you see a lot of law enforcement officers that actually do some volunteer time around the state. So even though they may not have a career job, we still kind of migrate to that. And then when I left the Sheriff's Office, I went to the Maryland State Police for 37 years, where I retired as an aviation flight paramedic. So I have seen Maryland grow. I have seen and flying over Frederick County, I've seen it expand exponentially, just flying over it. And I think when you're looking at it from 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet, and you would not believe the growth that we see.
I mean, quite a perspective. Because, a lot of people, I mean, my folks moved here kind of in the 80s, so, my family's been here for 40-ish years. But to have that kind of overhead view of it changing over the 30 years that you spent.
37,
so that is just something I can't even imagine. Was it like the frog in the pot, meaning that was like a slow boil, or was it like was there a year where you went, oh my God, Frederick is just different? You know what I mean?
I think over the last, I'd say the last 10 years probably. Just watching this area grow over the last 10 years is really like, oh my gosh, when did that development go in, or when was this track going to start?
Yeah.
And and it's good. I think that we need the growth here in the county. I know a lot of folks want to slow things down, but when you look at and talk about the housing, we could certainly use some more housing here, especially for our low-income folks. And, we really have about 1% to 2% inventory for folks like that. As you look at these developers, a lot of these homes are $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, and that's usually not the average worker here in Maryland. And so it's a two income household. A lot of folks are probably in that 80 to low mid 100 range, and they struggle with that. I mean, low income housing doesn't mean poor housing. It doesn't mean, what I would like to see us really have is probably some more condos or duplexes and multifamily units. Not everybody wants to live in an apartment. Not everybody wants to live in a condo. Some folks want to have their own property that they can do what they need to do with it. And there's just not enough availability for that.
So completely agree with it. I mean, the housing study that just came out said that, tens of thousands of units, we need because of how many people are moving here. And I've had this discussion and argument with my very good friends that it seems to me that when people do buy a house and they have a house, they don't want anybody else to build anywhere, right? Like once they have theirs, and so much of the community, especially the voters, do own a home. And so it's kind of, we put in policies that only help people that own a home. So I guess my question is, how do you have that conversation with people that it may not materially benefit them to build a bunch more houses, but it will help other people that like are their neighbors in their community. How do we kind of, I don't want to use the word convince, but like how do we have that conversation with people about the need to grow?
Well, nobody likes change. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're in the fire service, whether you're the average worker going back and forth, even within your own household. A lot of people don't like change. So
Yeah.
that'd be almost like you and your significant other saying, hey, I want to paint my room today and it's going to be this color. And that might strike up a conversation. Well, no, let's not do that. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And, before it's over said and done, you might be weeks or months into it. But here,
And that's only two people.
And that's only
having
two
the
people.
conversation.
That's
not,
only
not,
two
not
people.
200,000.
Exactly. So, change is inevitable. I know that folks, when they initially bought their homes, there may be farmland or around that they didn't think that folks were going to build up on it. And I see that even in Brunswick. So out by the Brunswick High School, Pointe aux Rocks Road, where Galen Manor, there was a home or a farm there, the Cooper property. And that's getting ready to have homes starting this year. Everybody thought that tract was going to stay vacant for a while, and then here we are. We're starting to move dirt here this year and put the infrastructure in for that. Brunswick Crossing was the same way.
Yeah.
Out there on 17, and there's more homes that's going to be put into that. I remember when Herb Doherty owned a lot of that land coming back and forth between Brunswick, and that's going to be developed too. But we need the housing, and believe it or not, there are a lot of folks, senior folks, middle-aged folks that want to remain close to their kids. And there's not enough inventory
Yeah.
for that to happen.
Yeah, especially, I mean, even if they're downsizing, like where are they going to, where are they going to move to?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think some homes, it need to be some smaller homes for that reason. Single-level homes, a lot of senior folks don't want to be walking the steps. And
Sure.
So, 55, 65 and up communities, we're starting to see a lot of those starting to pop up around the county because folks want to stay close to their families and they don't want a big home. So hopefully we can convince some of the builders that, let's look at some other inventory and think outside the box.
So, perfect segue too. So, what is the mechanism? I mean, do we say to developers, you can't build anything that's not affordable? Do we get rid of the fee in lieu? Does the government start looking at property and building things because you can kind of remove the profit motive? Like, how do we? Because we have to build a lot. Like I already asked, nobody likes change, but it's inevitable. People want to move here, right? So instead of people living on top of each other, we like in an actual home. Maybe we need to build up, is what you said. But how do we actually get that done?
Well, I think there's not one silver bullet, so to speak, that's going to
Sure.
fix it all. And we have to sit down and have to have some meaningful conversation, not only with the developers, because the expensive part of that is when you're actually starting the development and putting in the infrastructure.
Sure.
So I think that's something that we can look at not only on a county level but also as a state level. Different tax incentives there to make that happen. And also take a look at some of our federal partners as well. For first-time buyers, let's take a look at that structure and see what we can do. And I think I'm a product of some of that. Like I said, I bought my home when I was 18 years old. There are not many folks out here today that's going to go out here and buy their home. But my mindset was that when I came out of high school, that I didn't want to have a property manager. I didn't want to continue to pay a monthly mortgage or a monthly fee for an apartment that I couldn't own at the end of the day. I wanted to be able to establish some generational wealth, and that's what some folks are looking to be able to do, and maybe pass it along to their kids or use that as a startup home and then go to the next level. And we don't have enough inventory where younger folks in this generation can do that without putting themselves significantly in debt that they wouldn't be able to manage it.
Yeah, I know that I was wonderfully I was honored to be a judge of the Brunswick Veterans Day Parade last year, and I'm some familiar good friend of mine grew up kind of Jefferson area, and there is certainly a desire to maybe politically they're changing and the world changing, but that there's some heritage there that the people that live in different parts of Frederick County kind of want to hold on to. One of them being agriculture, right? That we are a county that has tons of ag land, tons of farmland, and some working farms. And I know right now with the economy and fertilizer, it's nobody's making a profit.
Crazy.
But they like desire to still have that. Can we have both? Can we grow at the rate that we are growing now and still preserve that?
Sure, I think we can. Frederick County has been known for its agriculture. As a teenager, I worked on quite a few farms, making money and putting money away just so I could do exactly what I said, purchase a home when I got out of school. Doesn't sound like a lot, but way back in the day, I was able to do that. And I certainly support what our farmers are doing here, and I look to run and hopefully get elected to continue to help our farmers try to put some of their property in ag preservation so that we don't just turn it all over to development. So again, there are some fine lines I think that we have to take a look at, but it's doable. And again, it's some give and take, and maybe not everybody's going to get everything that they want, but I think it's doable.
Okay, so you have this long career in fire, and then with the state police, and doing kind of, I guess, a medic for the state police. So et cetera. So why not just sit down on this property that you bought when you were 18? Why do any of this crazy politics stuff? Why are you sitting here? Is my question.
I'm not cut in that cloth like that. My parents instilled it on us to go out and do something good, have a good career, and I have sat back. A lot of folks have asked me, even when I was working for the state police, you need to run for an office. You need to be helpful because they see that you can get stuff done. And I couldn't do that because I was working. Mm-hmm. And so when I retired 3 years ago, I'm like, well, now's the time. And I was lucky. I got elected to the Brunswick City Council. And it's been an eye-opening experience, to say the least.
Yeah, to sit on that side of the table.
It is, but it's been a good ride so far. So it certainly allows me, and I think this is where it's helpful for me, especially since I'm running, that being a part of the Maryland Municipal League and seeing how some of the other municipalities work in and around Frederick County, that puts me a little bit ahead of most.
And you think that's valuable experience?
I think it is valuable experience. I think that when folks see that you've had a diversity in a career path and that you've had a diversity as an elected official, it certainly helps you to understand where people are coming from. And even in Brunswick, you sit there at some of the city council meetings and you have an open forum. We may not be able to fix everybody's problem, but we can certainly work with you to help mitigate some of your issues. Everybody doesn't get everything that they want, and I've certainly learned that, but we have to learn how to compromise.
So what surprised you the most about this side of it? Because I know that especially when you're fire or you're law enforcement, you're kind of unions, and so you get paid by the county, and so you kind of are involved in the county government, even though your direct reports, your job is protect people. It's not to write legislation. Mm-hmm. But to come over on the side of now you got to take the votes to write the rules for your community. What was the thing that surprised you the most?
Well, I think the thing that surprised me the most is just the outpouring that people have. That once you become an elected official, folks want to reach out to you, say, "Hey, can you help me with A, B, or C?" Um, and sometimes that answer may be no, and that's a hard thing to tell a constituent, a voter, that this doesn't work, and here's why. Um, but let's see if we can't massage it and figure out a different avenue or a different approach. So their approach may not be the way I look at something. I'd like to take that 360 view and not just say, hey, flat out, no, we can't do it, but let's at least discuss it. Let's see what we can do to make it work for you, or at least make it work better for you.
So what's something you were able to say yes to that you, I don't know, you were happy about, or you were surprised about, or?
Well, I think with the development in Brunswick right now, and we were able to sit down and with some of our developers out there and make some significant changes, and just some of the roads and stuff that they were doing through, whether it was widening the roads or making them more narrow. My mindset is we need to do stuff that has a more significant safety approach. Parking's a big issue when you start doing developments and building homes and townhouses. There's never enough there. I think that's something that the county probably needs to take a look at and revisit as the developers are building these homes and building not only just for single family but apartment dwellings or condos. There's just got to be adequate parking. That's one of the biggest complaints that we have in Brunswick, and especially even with just like basic snow removal. When you start pushing snow, where do you put it? You have a family that wants to have friends come over. Where do you park? My mother lives down in Greensboro, and I look at her development. It is a 55 and up community, but of course there's room for like 3 or 4 cars on her parking area. But then as you go around the neighborhood, they've also cut out like little niches for other visitors, so they could put 6 or 7 or 8 cars in. So if somebody comes to visit you, you got some place to park where you don't have the neighbor saying, "Hey, you're parking in my spot."
So what do you say then to, because I have 2 thoughts about this kind of the need for parking. One is I kind of feel like the dependence on automobiles is going away. Not tomorrow, but that anytime I have any conversation with somebody from the next generation, they don't have the drive that I mean, when I was like 15 and 3/4 or whenever I could get my driver's permit, it was like the day I got it. The day I could get my license, I got it, right? And that was kind of my generation was, because it was freedom, know. Now, it's certainly economic freedom for people that could afford it. So I fully accept that there's a ton of people that doesn't matter what age they are, they're not going to be able to. But that was like a desire that everyone had. It seems like that's not a desire anymore. So that's one thing is I feel like our relationship with automobiles is changing. The other thing is that I think that there's exponential cost to building developments that are not already tied into transit and closer into the city. So this is kind of a because I'm born in Frederick, and I'm kind of I live in the big city compared to the big city that is Brunswick compared to Knoxville, but it seems to me that we should be focused in on where the infrastructure already is. Make sense? So that as opposed to building another neighborhood, that we should go to where there already is a neighborhood and, I don't know, build like that direction, like build up, something higher. So do you think 30 years from now all cars are the same, or?
No, I don't think all cars are going to be the same. I think with Uber and Lyft and so forth, this current generation, that's how they get around.
Yeah.
For folks in my generation, we get that driver's license and we need to be able to drive. But you also look at the transportation that you have here in the county.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's one of the things that I certainly want to look at, especially between Adamstown and Middletown, Brunswick, that area, is, we have bus service, but a lot of people get on the bus, they come to Frederick for their work day, or they may try to come over here for a doctor's appointment, but then they're stuck because then that service doesn't frequently run back and forth during the day. And not everybody wants to hang out in Frederick every day. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But, it's not like here in Frederick where you have a bus service that's constantly moving, constantly running.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we have to look at going forward, and how we can get out to some of our bedroom communities, other municipalities, that they would have a more frequent service transportation. And none of it's
to go to those
cheap.
federal partners.
Right.
That's another thing that we need to be. We don't have the money.
Right.
Even though Frederick County, and I tell everybody all the time, Frederick County Transit is free. It's free. It's free. Tell everybody that it's free.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big fan of that. But there certainly is not enough in those stretches. You live in Thurmont, you live in Brunswick, you live in, I assume, even Urbana. Getting to city center is not. Just like we talked with the MARC train.
It's not easy.
Running all the time.
Even, and this is a conversation that the city council has even for Brunswick in that area, folks from Harpers Ferry. We could take a lot of traffic off of 270 when people want to go to D.C. on a weekend or go to Baltimore on a weekend if we had a more reliable transportation. We see the MARC train moving back and forth Monday through Friday, but not so much on the weekend. But
that's
if somebody
Saturday and
wanted to go to a ball game or a football game or a concert, if we had a afternoon train or maybe even a late night train, that would run when things start closing down, that people might take advantage of that because not everybody wants to drive.
So do we just go start yelling at them? I mean, how do we? Because again, as I said, it's something that they've talked about for so long. But maybe not everybody knows this, but as you know, those tracks are owned by MARC.
That's correct.
That they're not, even though
between them and
we
CSX,
put them in many years ago, even though our tax dollars even though it was our land that we gave the right of way and all those stuff. But CSX and MARC own the track themselves, so it's kind of they get to decide how many commuter trains are there, and I just don't know what the mechanism is as besides. I don't know, sitting outside their house with an alarm, annoying them until they do something.
Well, I think that's where we start to have a conversation with some of our other municipalities up and down the rail line to see what they have available. I mean, folks are lucky in Montgomery County because they have the metro system, and it's easy. When you get to Shady Grove, you can
go anywhere.
You can go anywhere. You go out of the country and you go to Europe, you can walk a couple blocks, get on a bus. That'll take you to a bus station, airplane, city center, and a lot of those folks don't have cars to get around. And I can't believe in this day and age that we can't do that and have that connectivity. And some of that is having a conversation with folks and see what it is that we can do and fit into a schedule.
It goes back to that. We're decades late. That
if
20 years ago we had said, all right, let's start investing in transit as opposed to the tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars spent increasing the arteries of the roads. Well, there's this idea, you may know this in economic terms, called induced demand, that you got a pipe and there's a bunch of water is going to go through that pipe. And then you make the pipe bigger, more water is going to go. It's going to be full. The pipe's going to be full. And same thing, that you build the road. People, I know one of the guys running for Congress every single time, Robin Ficker, he always has those signs, widen 270. It's going to be full because some people that before it was too busy for them are going to go, oh, well, now it's not as trafficy, so I'm gonna get on the road, and it's going to fill right back up because of the volume of people. There has to be a different solution. So let me go back to your career then, because anybody that has a long career in something that has technical pieces to it, I'm always very interested to know the effect of technology on that job. because you in the fire service and in the troopers have to make, you're dealing with the same thing that we are for the last 100 years, same thing.
Every bit.
But the way you approach that job is so very different. Back to that idea of change, right?
It is.
So tell me about, you first were on a chopper in what year?
1986.
96. And then you retired.
86. I just retired in 2023.
Okay, so was the job in 1997 and the job in 2021 even remotely the same job?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not the same job. I can definitely tell you it's not the same job. The skill set for the pilots was a little bit different. The skill set for the medics, the flight medics, is certainly different. Even here, as ground medics here, the skill set has changed. Firefighting has changed. So, when I came in, we were still flying a single-engine Bell Jet Ranger. So I came in 1986, shortly after Trooper 3 crashed here with Kerry and Greg, and was pretty much in the academy from that point on, and became a medic in October of that year. And we were flying single-engine Bell Jet Rangers, myself and a pilot, and then we were still able to carry 2 patients. That hasn't changed for the state police, but the skill sets of the medics have. We weren't given blood then. We weren't doing rapid sequence induction, which was basically medicating a person and putting a breathing tube in. We weren't doing defibrillation in the aircraft because it wasn't capable of doing that. We do all that stuff now, putting people on ventilators, doing rapid sequence induction. Maryland is one of the only states right now that really has a statewide whole blood program, and that's expanding.
What is a statewide whole blood program?
It started with shock trauma system and the Maryland State Police. That basically, that if someone has significant loss of blood, primarily our trauma patients that we dealt with, we didn't have that mechanism to give blood in the field. Now we do. And over the last 3 years, they have given literally hundreds of units of blood statewide.
These are lives.
These are lives.
20 years ago, no chance.
No, well, they didn't have. I wouldn't say they didn't have a chance. We're lucky here. We have the R. Adams Cali Shock Trauma Center. Dr. Tom Scalia has grown that facility. I've watched that grow. I'm one of the guys that I can go back and remember Dr. Cali, the guy's name that was on the building.
Yeah.
And how he helped develop the system. And then when Tom Scalia came in, he has expanded that exponentially to our military partners all around the world. You don't go outside of Maryland and folks don't ask you, how do you guys do that? How do you connect the hospitals together with the ground providers? How is it that nobody seems to be arguing between ground transports and hospitals? And we have those conversations. I was lucky enough that coming up through the system here in Frederick County that I was part of our quality assurance for our providers here in Frederick County. I sat on our regional EMS council for Frederick and Washington County and have chaired it on several occasions. That led me to the state EMS medical advisory at the state level, and then our EMS board, which basically the EMS board is the highest part of our EMS system here in Maryland. So it looks at not only changes within our system medically and approves those changes, but it also is the disciplinary arm for our field clinicians out in the field. And I was lucky enough to sit on that. I'm lucky enough to sit on our state's fire commission that looks at our fire laws and stuff here in Maryland.
So what's the secret sauce? You said you go anywhere else and they say it works in Maryland better. Was it just designed better? Is it because of, I mean, I assume it's because the system is a better system, but like, how did we get there? Was it just people were more willing to think outside of the box? Was it just the strong will of a couple of people that like forced it through? Like, why do we have?
I don't think our system was forced. I think our system evolved for looking at different issues that we have had, whether it's how we treat patients out in the field, how we integrate that with our hospital system, getting that person from point A to point B, and sitting down over 50 years of hard work by establishing regional EMS councils and bringing those to a core forefront through SEMSAC and our EMS board and talking through those issues.
Yes, standardization across.
Yes. So, believe it or not, FHH is a good example of that because, when you get into their lower or central counties, it may, when you do a transport with a patient, that turnover may be 30 or 40 minutes. Here in Frederick County, we don't have that. You can pretty much deliver your patient to the hospital, and within 15 minutes, 20 minutes usually at the most, you're back out on the road.
Yeah.
So, and folks look to Frederick County to see how we're able to do that. Now, some of it is just volume in the areas. So that was one of the issues that not only SEMSAC but the EMS board continues to look at. We statewide, we had some pretty horrific transport turnover times, and those numbers are coming down because of a collaborative effort and talking with hospital administration and working with field clinicians and working with the local fire services across the state. We're able to change some of that dynamic. Trauma care in the state, we, with the regional trauma centers, whether you go to Meritus or go to shock trauma or go to Suburban, our system is tied together in such a decent network that we have a facility for you. So whether it's neurotrauma, whether it's pediatric trauma, whether it's cardiac, we have a facility here that's geared to any patient, neonatal care. And Dr. Callie and Dr. Scalia and Dr. Ted Delbridge, who's our state EMS director for our field folks, we continue to have these conversations on how we make it better for our citizens. And so folks say it's expensive, but when you register your car, part of that goes into keeping the helicopters flying. Even though folks say, hey, my tags have gone up. Well, we never ever send you a bill.
Yeah.
Here in Maryland, because we're paying for it, because we want to get you to the right place the first time.
Yeah. So. And who makes that decision? Is that happening in the bird where you go, we're taking this, or is there like it's SOPs, meaning like you hit a certain check marks, we're going to Meritus. We hit a certain check marks, we're going to shock trauma.
Every healthcare clinician, field provider in Maryland follows a stringent set of protocols that is developed through the Maryland Institute for Emergency Medical Services and the shock trauma system. And those are constantly evaluated every year. And there are certain protocols that from a basic first responder, the EMT, and the paramedic level skill sets that each person has the ability to do. And so as long as they follow within the protocol and the guidelines for the injury patterns, they're going to get you to the right place that you need to be.
Yeah. Well, we are lucky to have that. And I assume everyone else is trying, but to have such an advanced system. And so the reason, beyond my personal curiosity, which I could ask, I have 800 more questions about how it works, it really seems like it requires being willing to change your thinking over time.
It does.
That you take more information and you say, okay, this changes the way and a removing of egos. And this is one of my when I say the crusades I'm on is that I keep imploring local leadership to separate themselves from their personal gain, their personal thoughts. Doesn't matter how we ever did it before. If we could possibly do something new or different, that would be an improvement, like you said, to the residents. I mean, all that matters about the system is that when somebody in Maryland, they get hurt, they get to the right place. That's what matters, right? It doesn't matter whose idea it was. It matters that that person gets there, the impact of that. Is that, you spend some time in local government, is that possible? Can we get our local politicians to start thinking that way?
Yes, we certainly can. I mean, I think that if the folks that I want to elect are the folks that's going to be honest with me, and you can't sugarcoat everything and say that we're going to be able to do something and then not follow through with it. And that's one of the things just at a local level that I've learned. There are certain things that we just can't do. But if you're honest with folks and say, again, let's have a conversation, let's see what we can do, and maybe change a law or change a direction or change an ordinance that could be helpful, then we can certainly do that. Will it give you everything that you're asking for? No. But I'm not afraid to say that I can do something. And I think with all the different disciplines that I have been a part of, there are certain times that you just say, nope, that's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And, but let's continue to take a look at it. And as time changes, maybe we can get there, maybe we can add this additional skill. Maybe we can look at this development in a different way. Maybe we can look at the infrastructure in a different way.
I think of this in the, energy is something that comes up with the cost of energy, and people, especially, you get a bunch of cold weather. We have a cold winter. We have a hot summer. And surprise, surprise, all of our energy bills go up, right? Well, sometimes it's because equipment's not working, right? In the HVAC world, I find that all the time. People will call and say, oh, my utility bill's $600. It's like, well, check your heat pump. Maybe something's going on.
To change your air filter.
Yeah, change your air filter, those kind of things, right? But it is, regardless of the spikes and regardless of Iran and all, and I don't expect you guys in the county council are able to fix what's happening
Can't fix that
in the Strait of Hormuz. But that there is this forever increase in energy costs, right? So whether it's fueling in your car, the electricity in your house, the oil for your home, what it would be. So I think in that same way that maybe we think about this differently, that we have microgrids that are, like, I know Thermont has its own utility, right? So maybe the city of Frederick needs to use its buying, we're all buying electricity together. So is that something Brunswick has ever thought about or looked at? Is that feasible? Is that
I think anything's feasible. I think that when we look at energy rates, the municipalities look at where they're buying their energy from, and can we come together to offset that cost?
Yeah.
Or
with solar.
I think that's all doable. Solar's a good one. I certainly don't want to see us like out in Western Maryland with seeing windmills pop up all across our mountains, but at the same time, even though solar is good, do we have to take all the fields up to put that solar there?
I think it's the buildings. I think it's the parking lots.
And again, that's a conversation I think that we need to have with our developers. We're building homes, but we're not building homes that's got solar panels already are part of that.
Yeah.
And they would say, well, it's the cost. Well, if people want that technology, they're still going to buy it.
Yeah.
And those are things that I think that we can look at doing. And again, we need to have that conversation, because even when you're building a big building, we could use solar to make that happen.
Maybe not a policy question so much as a philosophy question. Do you think that this is something that government should subsidize? Again, I'm not saying I'm asking for a dollar figure or anything, but is that a role of government for you to try to do some kind of solar for everybody, and look, the county funds it and then pays it back over time, because you can get obviously municipal funding and county funding costs a lot less than commercial funding, things like that. Is that a role, or is that, to your mind, that is something that kind of private industry should solve?
Well, I think we have to have not only the private industry, but I think locally we could have that conversation and maybe develop something that we haven't seen before to be able to do that. And whether the county subsidize that back to the citizen for putting solar, we haven't really thought about doing that, but it's something that we could look at.
But so that's why I guess, as I said, it's kind of a philosophy question, meaning that you would be, if again, it should work. Like we need to make sure we're not throwing money away or anything, but that if it could be feasible, it would be something that.
Sure. I mean, again, we have to look at what we do in a different light, and I think if you ask that question and you get the same answer and the result is the same every time you ask that question, then what's changed? And if you don't see any change, then we need to do something different.
Yeah.
And that's no different that you're looking at any of the disciplines that I've ever worked for. If the result is the same and nothing's changed, then what'd you do it for?
Yeah, and back to my, I think I've brought it up a couple times where, part of it is frustrating to me that it feels like there are some good ideas, but we never actually do the hard work of figuring out, because it's all about momentum, right? That, and I've told this analogy before, that if you have a train going on the tracks, it'll cut through a brick wall like butter. Mm-hmm. But if you have a train, it's not moving, and you put one brick in front of that front wheel, the train's not moving at all, right?
That's correct.
That it's, once we get it moving, but it just seems to me that no one is focused in on step one. We're all thinking about how great it could be or how bad the problem is. And it seems to me that all the conversations are one or the other, meaning, well, I wish that we had, so for example, school system, right? Mm-hmm. We've had some candidates that have talked about 21 students per classroom, right? Which a noble goal.
Right.
That costs another $90 million to get there, right? Mm-hmm. So so in those cases we're saying, okay, here it would be great to have this thing, but we have no path of getting there. Or we just say our schools are overcrowded. How bad is that? But no path to get there. So this is my, as I said, it's frustrating to me that it feels like we always talk about it, but there isn't. And part of it goes back to, I think, people like their jobs. That once you get into office, you feel like your position or your title, and you're a special person now because you're a county council member or a city council member, and people tend to go, well, I don't want to do that.
Well, I think you got to have that willingness to get the principals in the room and have a conversation and then make it useful. I mean, you can be on two sides of an issue and then bring those two groups together and just start discussing some of those issues, and then what's good, what's bad, what works, what doesn't, and then take an issue or two at a time and work your way through that.
But Eric, you're talking about compromise, which is not.
Nobody likes compromise.
It doesn't seem like it's in the vernacular
no.
at all. It's just team sports, right? Like, I'm not on your team or you're not on my team, so anything you say is terrible.
Yep.
You're an evil person. Everything's horrible. Mm-hmm. Everybody that's on my side, well, they're the best people, and we're perfect, and there's nothing wrong. And this is, an all sides thing.
It's on both sides.
So I just don't know how we get through that. But one way we do get through that, in my opinion, is we elect people who recognize when they've been wrong. So here's a question for you. What is something in your life or your career, or even better, when you're serving as a city council member, that you were wrong about, and then how did you deal with that? How did you overcome that? How did you recognize that?
That's not an easy question.
It's not meant to be, sir.
That's not an easy question. I mean, I think that as a city council person, I've certainly not been on the right side of the coin with maybe some of the developers, I guess, and their approach to how they were building some of our infrastructure.
Okay.
You know, and some of that is because some of that process was already done before I got there, so couldn't really change it because it was already etched in stone. Um, there are probably a myriad of issues within the fire service here in Frederick County that I've been involved with that, not any one specific that, Eric, that's a good idea, but it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Um,
So what's your response to those moments?
well, my response be is okay. My idea didn't work. So what's your next move?
Mm-hmm.
What's your, how do we overcome it? How do we? Our issue hadn't changed, but my approach may not be the right approach.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of these guys that says, hey, because it didn't work, that we still can't fix the problem.
Yeah.
It may be that somebody else may have to take the lead on it because my idea didn't work, and I'm okay with that.
Mm.
There ain't many politicians out there going to say, hey, you didn't get it right, and it's got to be my way or the highway, and do that.
Some would say most.
Well, I don't want to
maybe not here
myself,
locally, but
not locally.
But if you count all the politicians in the entire United States, in the entire world.
There again, I think you got to have a willingness to change, and if someone comes up and says, "Hey, Eric, you got it wrong," and I'm gonna say, "Yep, I did," and we're gonna figure out what we can do to fix it, and we're gonna move on.
Okay, so flip side to that. Now tell me something you're proud of, something in your a moment in your life, or something you accomplished, or doesn't have to be the most proud, but something.
I think I'm very happy with the career that I've had with the state police. That as a medic, that has certainly been the most rewarding part of my life, and being able to see our EMS system grow. Not only flying around, but even here in Frederick County as a medic and a firefighter here. I remember when our system was completely volunteer.
Yeah.
And when
it wasn't that long ago.
No. And that's not the volunteers' fault. I mean, understand that when you get into the fire service, career, or they would say professional and volunteer, it's all the same. The training is all the same. One gets paid for it, the other one doesn't. If I'm a professional, I get my training in 6 months, and then head out to the field. The volunteer, it's going to take you 2 years to get there because I got to work for a living.
Yeah.
Just like me, I work for the state police, so I got to do the training either on the weekends or during a weeknight in order to get the same training. But the training at the end is all the same.
That you end up with the same skill set.
And the same skill set. So whether you're a chief officer in this county one way or the other, the skill sets have got to be the same. The training is all the same. So it doesn't really matter which piece of equipment you roll up on or in. The training's the same. And that's the same way here in Maryland, statewide for that. Our law enforcement partners, regardless of the uniform that you wear, it doesn't matter what color that uniform is. You're going to be that respectable officer to offer your assistance to the citizen that calls you for help. So it doesn't matter where you came from. Your area may be different. Your car may be different. Our personalities should be about the same. We're going to administer the law the way we were trained and in an efficient manner, and not chastise folks for it. And that's what we do. So it doesn't really matter. I know there'll probably be folks that, hey, Eric, you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, and I've heard that already. I'm not going to vote for you because I don't vote for Democrats. Well, that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, but there's pretty other folks out there that will. So, and this thing about we don't cross party lines on this side or that side. Well, I'm a Democrat. I've voted for both. I'm not afraid to say that. There's not many folks that won't say that, but I have voted for both. I look at the individual, his or her skill set, to the best of their ability that I think is going to help me to get what I need.
Yeah.
And make it easier for me. I'm hoping that I'm that guy. I certainly want to make it easier for our residents here in Frederick County. I would certainly like to address some of our traffic and congestion issues and housing issues. And none of those are easy issues to deal with.
Yeah.
Same way with schools and the overcrowding. Sometimes the developments pop up and the school's not there to support that. I look at that even from Brunswick's standpoint. We have the oldest high school in Frederick County. And we're just now getting traction on replacing that. It should have been replaced 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
They just got done here a couple of years ago with the new elementary school. And again, some of that is because of the development in the area. But I think if we can get through some of our permitting processes, and that's a huge issue, and that's something that even at we try to address at MML, and I know MACO tries to address some of it too, is that permitting process, even at a state level. It just gets lost in the quagmire to try to get projects done. It's hard to believe that when you start a project that sometimes it takes 5 or 10 years to complete that project.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
It's also one of the things, especially in the city, that we talk about all the time, where people say, oh man, this building's going up, and but that building, I mean, the permits were pulled, the work, this was 5-10 years ago that this process began, and there was public hearings and things that happened before we had any idea what's going on, but we don't really know about it till it starts to go up, you know, and it's certainly a communications question, how do we make sure that the people in Frederick County, because you said it, I think you hit the nail on the head. Change, no one likes change, but it is inevitable, and it is coming, and we are growing. So we need to do it the right way. So part of that is I think some responsibility lays on the citizenry, that we need to be paying attention, that it can't be we should expect to understand every single thing that's going on when you're dealing with billion-dollar budgets, when you're dealing with, I mean, even in the city of Brunswick, you would have to be on the council to know everything going on.
Exactly.
So, my request to anybody, if you end up on the council or just in general, is to think about this communication problem and how do we. I don't just with everybody. They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. No one is going, let me watch.
And that's for some of our middle-aged, younger folks. I mean, we still got a lot of folks that still want to get their news through the newspaper, and they get it via word of mouth. And again, there's not one specific medium that you can reach out, and that's one of the things that you brought up, but we kind of laugh about it, I guess. And we've even looked at how many of those portals can you put on a web page: Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the newspaper, that you put that message out, and you still have folks that say, "Well, I never heard it."
No one ever told me.
Never told me.
But I tried everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, can we do better? Yeah, I think we can. And it's no different than looking at a building or a development going up, and, one day you ride by it, it's green pasture, farmland, or bare vacant lot, and then you come back a couple weeks later or a couple months later, and now we're moving dirt. Yeah. And then folks are like, what just happened? Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Well, speaking of communication, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, I have my Facebook page that's up and running. I hope people can
so
go
it's
to that.
Eric Smothers, Smothers.
S.
All right. So if they put that in, it'll be all right.
Yep.
Wonderful. Eric, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate
Well, I
it.
appreciate your time, and thanks for having me.